They smell like ravioli.
Now available in paperback and e-readers, John Haynes' Illuminati, the man who rules the world, takes on the head of the global elite in this all-new action-packed John Haynes series adventure. Get your copy of John Haynes' Illuminati in paperback and e-readers at Amazon.com and online booksellers everywhere. One of my viewers wanted me to talk about people who don't shower. Now, I didn't know that it was a thing for people to be walking around smelling like ravioli, Parmesan cheese, and oranges and other assorted foul scents, but here we are. And we're here because this is a new trend among people who think it's cool to be walking around and not showering, smelling like underarms and butts, and basically having drawers with a big brown line in the back. And this is the thing that they think is hip and trendy, and they basically believe it's hip and trendy, possibly due to the dysfunctional way we've been raising children and the way adults have been living for the last 30 years. Now, this whole trend started to become advertised in the mainstream media when celebrities like Ashton Kutcher and his wife Mila Kunis talk about how they don't shower for days, and a lot of other people started talking about how they don't shower and thinking that it's something that's perfectly normal. And this whole trend of being unhygienic and again smelling like some ravioli, Parmesan cheese, and some other things like apricots and oranges, because as someone who has rode the trains here in the New York City subway, I've basically had to endure these kinds of smells ever since I was 14 years old and started going to high school back in 1987, and sadly had a lot of encounters where there were homeless people who were riding the trains, and that's where I believe the core foundation of this whole trend of not showering wound up starting, because a lot of this basically comes out of the entire culture of homelessness that started out in the 1980s, because back in the 1980s when former President Ronald Reagan wound up closing up all the mental health facilities here in the country, what that led to was a lot of homeless people basically riding the trains, and as they were riding the trains, again, they did not have access to showers, and because those people did not have access to showers, this led to them wearing clothes for an extended period of time and having body odors in those clothes, basically due to a lot of the anxiety they had due to the heightened sense of awareness that you needed to have as related to living on the street. And that basically is what led to the start of people not going out here and taking care of their hygiene for an extended period of time. And that's where the whole trend of not showering basically had its foundation. And the situation over the last, I'd say, 40 years has gotten progressively worse. It's gotten progressively worse as related to people not showering, because a lot of people these days, even though they are working, ain't making enough money to be able to buy the basics, because bills are so high. And because bills are so high, people just cannot really afford to go out here and buy that soap to basically wash themselves. Moreover, a lot of people, they're working such long hours, they can't even work in time to even go have time for self-care, like taking care of their hygiene, because some people have to work 2 or 3 jobs, and since they have to work 2 or 3 jobs, they don't really have the time to go out here and schedule the time to go out here and shower and take care of their hygiene. So that's another group that's really had a heart. That's the reason why they don't shower, because they don't have the time, because again, you're going from one part-time job to basically going to another part-time job, and a lot of these jobs are hard, heavy labor, and some of them, if you do have a full-time job, you're basically working in an office for hours on end, and you don't have any personal time at all. So what happens is people don't have time to shower and take care of themselves, and that's why we have all this funk going on. We have all this funk going on because you've got again, a population of homeless people. You've got a population of overworked people. And as you have these adults who are homeless and overworked, what they're doing is teaching a culture of not being hygienic to their children. And as those children basically are growing up and seeing mom and dad not taking care of themselves by scheduling time to go out here and take showers and take baths, what happens is that those children are learning from their parents it's okay not to shower, it's okay not to be clean, because the whole thing is that everything is about going out here and going to either go do some work or go work at a job, and that you have to make the job a priority. And even worse, as the kids see that model from their children, from their parents, they also see it as related to the way they are taken care of, because they're not really cared for by their parents at their home. No, what happens to a lot of those children is that they're taken to daycare, and as they're taken to daycare, they're basically not being brought to the daycare center clean. I've had family members tell me about this, about how a lot of kids just basically are just brought there just halfway presented, like they put their kids' hair in a ponytail, or they just basically take them out of bed and put them in clothes. Now, this runs completely different from the way I was raised as a boy growing up poor in the South Bronx. Now, I grew up poor in the South Bronx across the street from the Metro North railroad tracks, but my mother always had time to make sure that I was clean, and always had time to make sure that I took a bath every morning, and always had time to make sure that my hair was combed and make sure that I was wearing clean clothes. That was the standard set by my mother that was taught to me, and that taught me to take care of my hygiene. Basically, what I do every day is I go in and I wash up and wash my face, because I believe in being clean and believe in taking care of myself. I always believe in working in some time to get myself ready for a day before I go out here and start recording some videos and do other book promotion work and writing work. I always try to make sure that there's time for me, and I'm always these days now trying to work in more time to go do the things that I like pursuing my hobbies and other interests. I'm always trying to work in that time, but these days a lot of people aren't working in that time, and since they're not taking that time to care for themselves, it's really showing in the way that they're presenting themselves out here, going out here smelling like butt ravioli and feet and other assorted foul odors. And again, they're not taking care of themselves because they believe they have to go out here and in some cases work hard to take care of business. Now, there's a group of people out here who are just really being lazy, but the whole thing about not showering is it's a really bad feeling. I can tell you that from experience. If you don't wash yourself over a period of time, you basically feel like you have a film on your skin, one. Two, you feel like your hair is very heavy and is very uncomfortable. But the whole thing is, when you have a person who stops caring for themselves, again, this is something that happens in a lot of cases basically due to stress, and it happens due to stress, and it happened to a lot of homeless people who basically wound up homeless in some cases due to mental health issues, and others wound up in a place of homelessness because they wound up losing their jobs. And a large growing trend that I'm seeing is a lot of people winding up homeless because the rent went up on them, and they wound up in a place where they had been working for long hours, scrambling to try to find the way to make enough money to pay these insane rents as related to their apartment, or trying to keep up with a mortgage. And again, when your mind is in survival mode, what happens is your whole mindset completely changes, and as it completely changes, you stop taking care of yourself in an effort to try to take care of things that can help you to be able to survive. I know this because I had to deal with that whole type of mindset from about 2002 to about 2008, when I wound up not wind up with a law firm job falling apart on me, and the job that I thought I was going to get at Strive falling apart, and winding up living off of $60 a month from a relative. So I know where your head is. And again, when you're just thinking about surviving, you stop focusing on taking care of yourself to a point, and you wind up in a place where you're just thinking about getting through a day. And that's another reason why a lot of people aren't really thinking about showering, because again, their head is not in a place where they can go out here and focus on self, because everything is so chaotic, especially these days with today's economy and today's job market. I mean, with today's economy and today's job market, a lot of people, they are just trying to focus on trying to take care of the things that they can to survive, because their mind is in complete survival mode. So you've got a lot of people out here, they would be making that priority to go out here and take that time for themselves, to go out here and do things like showering. But a lot of those people, again, just don't have that time, because they're running from job to job, or they're working extremely long hours because a boss basically has them working 2, 3, 4 people's jobs, and they basically, again, just don't have that time. So that's some of the things that's leading to this extremely disturbing trend as related to the poor hygiene trend that's been going on. And all of this poor hygiene that's been going on is something that some people are trying to make into a norm. But when you have large populations of people participating in poor hygiene, it's not an indicator of success. No, it's an indicator that your society is on a state of a decline. And it's in a state of decline because if people cannot go out here and have the time to care for themselves, then the whole society basically is in a place where things are falling apart. Because part of a healthy society is people having that time to go out here and do things like taking a shower or taking a bath, because cleanliness is a sign that a person's mental health is in a stable place, and personal care like hygiene is a sign that people are basically in a place where their mind is completely right, and they're in a place where they are not stressed and not anxious about things, and are in a place where they can focus on these kinds of things. But the whole thing is people can't focus on caring for themselves, because many in big business and many in corporate America haven't given them that time, because they show how little they care about them, and they don't care about them because all they're thinking about is the bottom line. And because they think about the bottom line of just making the most money, they don't really think about the needs of the people who work for them. And that because these overworked people are out here, again, they're not looking their best and being their best. No, they're basically out here smelling like booty and thinking smelling like booty is perfectly fine. But smelling like booty is a sign that this person is overworked. In a lot of cases, if they have a job, and if they're out here and they're they're homeless and they're struggling at that point, it's a sign that this person really is in a place again where they can't care for themselves. But overall, it's a bad sign as related to your society when people aren't keeping themselves clean, because if people aren't keeping themselves clean, that means the standards of your society are going down. It's a sign that there's no standards. And again, being around dirty people, again, is a sign that things are unsanitary. And the thing that people really need to think about this trend of people not taking showers is if this person is working around your food. I mean, that in and of itself, I wouldn't want to be around. I wouldn't want to be around a bunch of people who are working around my food who haven't gone out here and taken a shower, because that means that this person may cross-contaminate my food with their funk and may cross-contaminate any place that you're working in. I mean, one of the worst things you could do is run into somebody who is smelling like booty, smelling like ravioli, smelling like Parmesan cheese, or smelling like funky underarms. I mean, this is not something that's a good thing as related to your society. I mean, I've been on trains where I've had to smell funky underarms, or even worse, the smells of ravioli, which is the first of the signs that show you things are going bad. And as related to the scale of stink, I mean, ravioli and underarms are the low levels, and this further escalates to Parmesan cheese, and then there's the smell of apricots or orange. And again, this is a sign person hasn't washed in several days or several weeks, and not a good sign, not a good sign for your country when people are again saying they don't have time to shower or don't have a place to shower. I mean, this is not good, because what this does is not only cross-contaminate your food if this person is working in your restaurants, it also is going to lead to the spread of germs and disease. And again, not really something you want to deal with as related to things. And even worse, what I'm seeing is even worse as related to the children, since mama's not teaching them how to wash. What I'm seeing is a lot of guys out here with the skid mark line in the back of their drawers, or even worse, like when I saw in a kid organic video a long time ago, how he talked about how this white boy was out here looking to mac a black chick with a big mound of dookie in the back of his drawers. And again, that just shows you the dysfunction that's been going on as related to the decline of our society, when you have people not washing themselves, or even worse, like in the case of the white boy in the kid organic video, walking around with a mound of dookie in the back of your drawers. I mean, that is something that guy had to learn as related to not learning anything about hygiene. And that's what happens when you have an overworked mother and nobody there to, again, teach children the basics. And a lot of people thinking, oh, daycare will teach kids the basics, but daycare cannot teach children about hygiene. No, hygiene is something that you have to see mom and dad model, and you have to see mom and dad walking out here clean, walking out here in nice clean clothes, mom walking out here with a nice clean head of hair, mom taking care of herself, because when kids see mom taking care of herself, it's a sign that she loves herself. And when they see mom and dad taking care of themselves and smelling good, they see that as a standard for themselves. And since they see it as a standard for themselves, what these kids do is they wind up learning to take care of themselves. And as mom and dad teach them how to be clean, they learn how to be clean. And again, this is how we get a trend of hygiene that's passed on from generation to generation. But as our society has become more caught up in its greed, a lot of people have gained this tunnel vision. And as they've gained this tunnel vision, this is where we get this new trend of people saying, hey, I don't shower, I don't go out here and wash myself. And for me, that's just unacceptable. If I'm going out, even if I'm going to a supermarket or I'm going to a store, because just today, I'm filming this on a Saturday night, but on Saturday morning before I went outside, I went out here and I took a shower. I went out here the day before and I washed my hair because it was feeling kind of heavy. And I said, I don't like that heavy feeling of that dust or just sweat in my hair on top of my scalp. And I go out here and I wash myself and I keep myself clean because I have a standard that was taught to me by my parents. But sadly, over the last 30, 40 years, a lot of kids haven't been taught this because all we've been taught is work, 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 and work. And what are you working for? That's the critical question I've got to ask. I mean, what are you working for if you don't even have time to keep yourself clean? I mean, what are you working for if you don't have time to take care of yourself? That's not a job. That's slavery at that point, because only a slave takes no time to take care of themselves. And again, when people don't take care of themselves, that means, again, your society is in a bad place. And when I've heard trends about this whole trend of people not going out here showering, again, that shows me that there were two things going on. We have, again, a mental health issue with some of these individuals, because I did a whole report on a woman who wound up getting arrested because she basically was going on a violent spree because her grandparents told her to shower. But in that case, I said that woman had mental health issues like many other people, like I've seen when I was working at America with the homeless population. Again, people with mental health issues who have been exacerbated by situations like unemployment or basically be it living on the street. they've stopped focusing on that because they get into survival mode. But a lot of other people these days who are working are in survival mode to the point where all they're thinking about is their jobs. And what's even worse is that as they have kids, the kids are learning this dysfunction as a norm. And sadly, nobody cares in corporate America to say, hey, let's go cut some of these hours so that people can have time like they did when I was a kid. Because when I was a kid, they had enough staff on hand and they had enough money on hand to say, look, let's go out here and give these people that 8 hours so that they can go out here and take care of their hygiene, go have that 8 hours to go out here and rest, have that 8 hours to go out here and spend time with their kids. All we want is 8 hours on the job as related to the shift. But these days, again, people have become so obsessed and so filled with tunnel vision. All they think about is, oh, I'm just going to go out here and have this person working all these long hours without taking time to care for themselves. And that's what's leading to this whole trend of saying, hey, I don't need to shower. But no, everybody needs to have that time to shower. Everybody needs to have that time to sit at a dinner table with their kids and talk to their kids as they're eating cereal. I mean, that's one of the things that I really am grateful to have growing up in the 80s. I mean, having that time to, at 7 o'clock or so, be getting up to go and wash up. And I didn't really want to do that when I was a kid, but the whole thing is my mother made me do that. And as I got older as a teenager, I really appreciated that, because that time you started as a little kid learning how to wash yourself, that time you learned to sit down and eat some breakfast, again, that's your time, and that's your time to relax before you go to school. And that's the time that, again, helps kids to learn how to take care of themselves. And sadly, people are not getting that time to care for self. And again, if you don't take care of yourself, nobody's going to take care of you. And part of taking care of yourself is keeping yourself clean. Part of taking yourself is making sure your hygiene is on point. Part of taking care of yourself is making sure that you are clean. And again, this is something many people aren't doing, and it's not a good sign for your society when you have large masses of unwashed people who aren't taking care of themselves. And again, it's a really bad thing, and nobody's really thinking about it. They're thinking about it as something silly, but the whole thing is, this is a very serious matter, and it's a very serious matter that we really need to think about, because if we've got time for everything and not time for ourselves, then it's a sign that we as a nation are just doing too much, and we need to dial it back so that we can have time to take care of ourselves and do basic human things like going out here and taking a shower. Now, this was a video requested by one of my viewers, and if you want to request a video, you can drop a donation for a minimum of $15 to the PayPal and the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. And if you want to check out some of my fantasy fiction on the SJS Direct imprint or my men's and issues books, you can find those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find them at other online booksellers like Draft to Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and big box retailers like Walmart and Target. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Isis, Dark Incubus. The goddess next door gets enthralled in a romantic entanglement with an evil incubus in this all-new Isis series adventure. Get your copy of Isis, Dark Incubus in paperback and e-readers today. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Esteem Horror in the Hamptons. The aspiring angel tries to escape a house of horrors in this action-packed, all-new Esteem series adventure. Get your copy of Esteem Horror in the Hamptons in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.